This is the beginning of Chapter 16, Part 1. At the end of Chapter 15, we were talking about, Lecture 16, Part 1. At the end of Lecture 15, we were talking about, is all ultraviolet radiation the same? And we recognize that, all visible radiation isn't the same. That we know that because we can see a spectrum, and we know that it varies from 400 nanometers to 700 nanometers. And now we also know that there's a relationship between the wavelength of the light and the energy. So since red light is around 700 nanometers, that tells me that it's a longer wavelength. It must be of lower energy, whereas the violet light was around 400 nanometers, and that is a shorter wavelength, so it must be a higher energy. So now let's take that same concept and put it on top of this concept of the UV radiation. And as it turns out, UV radiation is just like any other spectrum, and the electromagnetic radiation, it's a range. And so we're going to look at how the different energy of the spectrum interacts with matter differently. All right, so looking at the range, when we talk about visible light, the range is 400 to 700, and we describe the different regions using colors, red and green and yellow and blue and whatnot. Well, for UV radiation, we don't use colors to describe the different ranges, but rather we use this A, B, and C. And so A region, B region, C region. A is from 320 to 400, 280 to 320, 200 to 280. Since there's a relationship between wavelength and energy, this is the least energetic region of the UV part of the spectrum. And so, therefore, it's the least damaging. It reaches the Earth in the greatest amount, but it does the least damage when it gets here. The UVB is in the middle, and that is more energetic than A, but less than C. And so there it's less damaging than C, but more damaging than A. And as it turns out, most of the ozone in the stratosphere is, most of the UVB is absorbed by the ozone in the stratosphere. And then the highest energy ultraviolet radiation is 200 to 280. That's the most energetic of the three categories. Therefore, it's the most damaging. Fortunately, almost no UVC, or no, I should not say almost, but no UVC makes it to the surface of the Earth because it is absorbed by oxygen, molecular oxygen, and ozone, and other molecules in the atmosphere before it makes it down here.